All right, so we're just going to go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone tonight to the More Than a Month Mobilizer orientation. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to sit with me as I just go through our Mobilizer program very high level so that you can get a better understanding of what we're asking our mobilizers to do. And this picture was actually taken at a Freedom to Learn rally that was held by NCNW in DC, where we had a Morgan State contingent come down. So I think all of the students here are actually from Morgan State, just representing different organizations on campus. But we've been at this work for quite some time, and so you'll see that as we move through. And so the agenda for tonight is very brief. We'll start with a welcome and introduction, go into our overview and goals. We'll talk a little bit about the purpose of the program. Then I'll lay out a mobilizer roadmap for you. Then we'll talk a little bit about the truth. And then we'll get into our next steps. So my name is Jamel Khalise. I proudly serve as the field organizer for the NAACP Youth and College Division, more specifically handling all things field operations and compliance in regions 2, 3, 4, Tennessee, South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia. And more specifically for this program, I will be your primary point of contact. That is why I have my phone number and email there. So if you don't have it, I'll give you a quick second to go ahead and jot it down, but also remember that you will receive this slide deck after the presentation. And so the More Than a Month Mobilizer overview. And so the More Than a Month program is a program that is going to run from September 14th to October 26th of 2023. And the program is a passionate and dedicated initiative aimed at combating anti-CRT legislation and advocating for inclusive education policies. So if you have anti-CRT legislation or you are experiencing attacks on education in your state, in your jurisdiction, in your county, in your city, give me a thumbs up in the chat if you or anyone you know is experiencing this. Perfect. I see a thumb. Like I said, we're gonna need the interactions tonight. So see one thumb, just one person. Okay. Okay, I'm seeing some more thumbs coming in. Give me 1 second. Let me go ahead and okay. Gave y'all some time to put the thumbs up. Okay, so through grassroots organizing, public awareness campaigns, and intentional training curriculum efforts, the program seeks to create a more equitable and inclusive society by challenging discriminatory practices and promoting equal opportunities for all. And so for those that have raised their thumbs, I'm sure that you have seen organizations or cohorts of people in your communities fighting back against the attacks that are happening. And so through our Mobilizer program, that is exactly what we are going to try to do. We are taking an intentional approach at pushing back on the attacks against education all around the nation. So what are our goals for the campaign? Very simple. We are trying to get 80 to 100 mobilizers, and their roles will be outlined in the campaign as we go out. As we move through this presentation, you'll start to get a better grasp of what is the role of a mobilizer. We're hoping to reactivate education committees in 25% of units engaged. So that is, if there's a person here that is the only representative from their unit, or that is involved in the program and serves as the only representative for their unit, they can still take the trainings and the teachings and everything that we're going to learn throughout the course of this series and go ahead and try to reactivate that education committee to further the work. We're trying to get 50 mobilizer testimonials at school board meetings, county council meetings, or city council meetings, for those who are aware of the benefit of having your voices heard and public opinion. You understand why it is important for us to be at the school board meetings, but more importantly, to share testimonials at these school board meetings, because the narrative is that our voices are not being heard, our stories are not being told. And so we want to make sure that at least half of our mobilizers are moving to the school board meetings, be it virtual or in person, to go ahead and share in their public opinion. We want to make sure that we have 100+ op-eds on education. And so speaking to how we have our voices heard is through writing our stories. We may not always be given the platform to speak, but we can always write what we are going through. And how we can do that is through op-eds, letters to the editor, and different publications. We do have connections with a host of media outlets, academics, as well as professionals who will be helping us as we work through the op-ed process. We also want to create over 150 PSA on the attacks on education. And so it's no secret that we are in a climate of social media. We are in the social media age. And what do we mean when we say PSA? Is we're going to give you a script. We're going to give you some guidelines so that you know how to go ahead and create a problem, solution, and ask as far as it relates to the attacks on education, hoping that the content that we create will generate some kind of buzz, and possibly some of those pieces will be able to go viral and get the attentions of those that are in our local jurisdictions or in our states, or what have you. The expectations. So what are the expectations? The expectation is that if you sign on to be a mobilizer, is that you attend or recap all trainings. And so as mentioned, this training will be sent via email for those who were not able to attend. We know that life happens, and so we don't want to hold folks hostage to the time, but we want to make sure that you are recapping all trainings, because there will be some action items shared towards the end of each training. And so we want to make sure that all of our mobilizers have the opportunity to complete those things. As mentioned before, we want to attend at least one school board meeting, whether it be in person or virtual. And this expectation, it is not the ask that you speak at the meeting, but that you attend at least one school board meeting. We want you to be a great ambassador for the NAACP. We want you to write at least one op-ed. We want you to create at least 2 videos, but never fear, because as I mentioned before, we will share the script and guidelines. So it'll be cut and paste for you to just basically submit your video. So it won't be too much on your end. If you are still with me, let me get a thumbs up so I know that you guys are still following me.
We are following you. We're so happy to be here, Jamel.
You're gonna make me blush, right? You need to stop. No. But the More Than a Month Mobilizer purpose. And so the purpose of the program was that it was developed from the Free Our Schools campaign. So if you have been keeping your ear to what the education team overall has been doing, we started a Free Our Schools campaign. But this particular mobilizer program primarily focuses on the youth and college division. The program and campaign seeks to encourage youth members to think about Black history as a significant part of American history and education, and also to aid and promote in the activation of our local members, calling on respective governors, local elected officials, and change makers for change. The program affirms how the NAACP opposes censorship legislation that ultimately decreases knowledge and understanding of culturally diverse groups for students. And so to take a step back, just so folks can truly understand what was done here, is that there was a overarching program called the Free Our Schools campaign that had a focus, but we wanted to make sure that we do our due diligence as a mighty arm, as one of the mightier arms of the NAACP, the Youth and College Division, and make sure that our leaders and our cohort has a voice in this movement. And so we wanted to make sure that we are mobilizing our folks to aid in what the overall organization is doing. And so we wanted to make sure that we kept our leaders in the forefront. So the mobilizer roadmap. So today we are at the orientation. On September 28th, we will have a training or a session on how to show up. On October 12th, we'll go through a writing workshop where you'll learn about how to construct your op-eds, your LTEs, letter to the editors, and just overall writing pieces. And then on October 26th, we'll have a social media training. So you'll learn how to recap, how to tell your story. So let's dive a little bit deeper into the roadmap. So today we are at the orientation, which is just an introduction of the program goals, outcomes, and expectations. We'll talk a little bit about the CRT principles, its historical context, and the role of CRT in education today. On September 28th, we will cover effective advocacy techniques, understanding the legislative process, engaging with policymakers, responding to common misconceptions and critiques of education, and then developing persuasive arguments. And so that is where we will learn how to show up at school board meetings, how to show up in meetings with mayors, senators, elected official, governors, what have you, in these different spaces. But we wanted to provide you with the necessary foundation to have substantial conversations when you are allotted the opportunity in these spaces. On October 12th, we'll have the writing workshop. So we'll cover implementing CRT principles in educational settings and the strategies that they have for fostering inclusive classrooms. So we'll have writing sessions, basically sharing some groundwork on op-eds, letters to politicians, and how to craft your own personal narrative. On October 26th, we'll have our social media training. And so the topics we'll cover there is how to examine the educational disparities, strategies for promoting equity and access in schools, building relationships with community stakeholders, and organizing outreach events, and then recapping your experience. And so how to tell your story. Before we move on to this piece, are there any questions in regards to the roadmap or the trainings? I'll go back for folks. Right. Okay, so let's get to the truth. And so I want some feedback and interactions here. So if you can raise your hand and possibly come off mute whenever called. Just want to get some folks' perspective on a comment that was made by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. And the comment reads, because it's a war on truth, I think we have no choice but to wage a war on woke. And so if we have any Floridians in the session right now with us, if you can share the perspective of what the attacks on education are doing in Florida, or if you have any friends or relatives in Florida that can speak to how the governor's opinions are shaping how education is now being taught in the state.
Hello.
Yes.
My name is Monica, and my sisters are in Florida. They relocated from New Jersey, and they were both educators, but they retired. And my one sister was, I saw that there was another New Jersey woman here. We have what's called the EOF program, Equal Opportunities Funding, and she was the director of one of those programs at the colleges. And she actually joined, I'm not sure what the name of it, but it's a Marcus Garvey's organization down there. And they started and opened the Freedom Schools over the summer, where they were teaching Black history to children. And they're going to have a big conference, I guess, at the end of this month. So that's how they are combating it.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, and so why is this important? Because we need to understand that things that are happening around education are not happening in pockets. They are happening in pockets, but they're not happening in silos. Once Florida started to roll something out, then went Arkansas, then went North Dakota, Mississippi, Virginia. So you have to pay attention to the rhetoric that is being pushed in different states as it relates to education. And thank you for sharing that, because that kind of alluded into what I'm gonna speak about next is just a few statements that I pulled from online that basically one said, when Americans call their legislators, join school boards, or utilize social media platforms to share their concerns about education, they are exercising the right to make their voices heard on policy issues. And so how does that connect to what we're doing as mobilizers? Well, this is almost a cookie cutter sample size of everything that we're going to be doing. We're going to be trying to go into these school boards, attending the meetings. Therefore, after we attend, the folks are comfortable sharing and having their testimonials heard. But again, it speaks to having your voices heard on the policy issues. So much of the narrative does not include our stories, and we need to change that. And so there's freedom schools happening in Florida. The NAACP Youth and College Division is doing our Mobilizer program. Organizations like Florida Student Power just went through Power University, where they were training students throughout the summer to be able to go back to the schools and speak truth to power. And so others in Missouri, so just so folks have an understanding of how young people are moving against the attacks on education. Others in Missouri have sued their districts for removing books that are inclusive of multiple groups across racial, ethnic, gender, non-disabled, and disabled, and socioeconomic lines. And so there is a lot of moments happening. And so we wanted to make sure that how do we meet the moment and turn it into a movement? And so we wanted to make sure that as we are orienting our new our mobilizers into the program, you understand the difference between the truth and a lie. And so I'm going to try this, but I did try earlier, and I believe that I have a restriction on my computer. So I'm just going to try 2 seconds. If you can hear it, give me a thumbs up. But if not, as I mentioned, this will be sent to you so you can watch it once the recap email is sent. But this is a conversation with the NAACP Director of Education, Dr. Ivory Tolson, who is just speaking to what is happening in Arkansas and how it connects to the Little Rock Nine, and also just providing a high level comparison, or not comparison, but just showing how that American history is nothing without Black history. And that even in Arkansas with the Little Rock Nine and just the work that they were able to do, without individuals like them, we wouldn't even be able to be in the positions that we are in now. And so he was able to speak truth to power on MSNBC. And so I just wanted to share that with you all, but I'm going to try. But as I mentioned before, I do not think that the sound is working on the computer. So I'm just going to give you 2 seconds.
Bringing in a new roommate to save money, is that the plan?
Say hi to Glenn from work.
Yeah, I think I have a much better plan.
Are
Switch
you all
my
able
plan
to
to
hear
Verizon.
that?
Yes.
Oh, yes?
It's a good plan. This week, new and current customers get a free Samsung Galaxy S23 plus Galaxy
Thank you
Watch
for the
and Tab.
ad.
All on us. Offer ends soon. It's your Verizon.
6 schools in Arkansas are moving ahead with an AP African American Studies course, even though the state says it won't count towards a student's graduation. The state's education department warned schools not to offer the course on what was the first day of school for many districts. Joining me tonight is Dr. Ivory Tolson, the Director of Education, Innovation, and Research for the NAACP. Dr. Tolson, I want to play something for you that the Arkansas Governor, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, said about this on Fox News, and then I want you to respond. Take a listen.
We cannot perpetuate a lie to our students and push this propaganda leftist agenda, teaching our kids to hate America and hate one another.
How do you respond to the assertion that teaching African American studies is teaching children to hate America?
Yeah, it's really absurd. Arkansas history and Black history are intertwined. The history of African Americans in Arkansas paved the way for us to dismantle segregation across the entire nation. So for her to imply that children learning African American studies would somehow indoctrinates them, it really shows you how she is otherizing Black people. She's using white privilege to perpetuate this narrative that you have a Black history that's separate from American history. And it's really sad to see someone with her position do that.
Can we just talk for a second about this idea that teaching Black history, the history of Black people in this country, which is in fact American history, is somehow indoctrination?
Yeah. And, you know, it's a political stunt. She's talking to the lowest part of her party that is believing that if a child goes to school and learns about other races, learns about some of the more disappointing aspects of American history, that's going to make them less American. It's really a view of what it means to be a good American that's completely out of step with where we need to go. We're talking about someone who has not condemned insurrectionists, people who actually try to dismantle our democracy. She doesn't have a problem with them. She's not saying that they're indoctrinating, But she's saying that Black studies indoctrinates.
So that was director Dr. Tolson, who serves as our director of education, innovation, and research. And again, just speaking truth to power, as I'm sure you kind of heard the tones and the words that were used in the interview and through the clips, lies, truth. We want to make sure that, again, we have our stories heard, we have our voices heard. And I seen a hand up before I move on. Yeah, I think we're good. And so what do the anti-CRT measures look like in the United States? And so this is a map as of April 2023. And so you can see which anti-CRT measures were adopted by which states. And I see a hand up.
I just wanted to say about Sarah, I couldn't find the reactions button on this. You know, one of her very first act when she became governor was to uh, reduce the age of children that could work. She wanted, that is because trying to bring in young people under 14 that can go in and work in these factories. And that's a whole other story we'll have to talk about. But I'm originally from Arkansas, so I keep a good eye on what's going in there. She's just one of the most outrageous governors, really akin to Texas and Florida. So she's really, really bad.
Yes, and thank you for sharing. And you alluded to a very great point. If you check the history, or if you are following some of the practices of specific governors that may have certain opinions or similar opinions, you can see a track record. In Florida, they started with a don't say gay bill or something like that, and then it snowballed into what we have turned into the ban on African American studies. And so you have to keep an eye on these things, and that is why now more than ever we need our mobilizers, we need our truth tellers, we need our young people to be able to stand up and have their voices heard. And so, as I was mentioning before, and thank you so much, Ms. Scott, for that anecdote. This map, you can see where some anti-CRT measures have been adopted. And navy blue is at the state level. That gray, that darkish gray is at the city level, and then the gray is the school district level only. And as you can see, a majority of our map is navy blue. So a lot of these bills or ideas have been passed on to the state level. And so they're making their way through those school board meetings, through these spaces where we are not often represented, through suggestions of 2 or 3 folks, and there you have it. And so we need to make sure that, again, we are present and we are preparing to speak truth to power when we show up in these spaces. And so what are the next steps? And so if you have remained enthused about the program and are still considering moving forward, or if you have some young people, because I did see some advisors on the call that you know have been speaking out against the attacks on education or would be perfect for this opportunity, what I'm going to do is in our recap is share a mobilizer form with you. What that is going to ask is a little bit more personal information, things like your t-shirt size or your physical address. We do have some things that we are going to put together to mail out to our mobilizers, possibly a poster, some script material, and some different things for your videos as well. But we will share that mobilizer form with you in our recap email. And so we do understand that there may be more than one or a group of folks from different states. And so what we are going to do is coordinate with your respective state conference presidents to serve as your state lead. And so that person will be in charge of coordinating all of the mobilizers' efforts, your schedules, your videos, what have you, making sure that we have all of those things prepared and ready to go. And then create your first video. And so in the recap email, I will share the script with you and the guidelines so that you can go ahead and create your first video. But it will be very high level, no more than 15 to 20 seconds, calling on your governor to take action against a specific bill, and it will be tailor-made to your specific state conference. And so not to worry, we do have that information readily available to share. All right, so now is the time for any questions, any concerns.
It's Monica again. I do have a question. We are referring to this as CRT.
Say that one more time. You kind of cut out for me.
We are referring to this as CRT, critical race theory.
Referring to what exactly? The program?
It looked like you were saying, you know, like we're trying to counter that CRT or wokeness. I'm not sure. Are you referring to CRT at all? That's one of my questions.
Yes, that we were referring. So as mentioned before, through the Free Our Schools campaign, this was developed, and that was one of the points. And so, yes.
Because the reason why I'm asking is because I was a former educator.
Yes, ma'am.
And from what I understand, CRT is critical race theory that was only taught at either Yale or Harvard. So are we buying into now what they're trying to say we're doing? Because that doesn't make sense to me.
So I think that it's the anti-CRT legislation that we're pushing against, which in turn goes and fights against what can be taught in schools. That's what they're using.
It's like we're making their lie relevant I mean, to me, I can't push that we're not. I mean, New Jersey does not have CRT in our elementary schools or in our high schools. So for me to like go and agree with, oh yeah, we don't want to, we're not, CRT is okay. That does not make sense to me.
So that is not what we're saying in this at all. And so I implore you to attend our next training where we'll dive deeper into that, but that is not what we are employing at all. Actually, we'll also have a group or one representative at least from the education team overall that will be able to answer those questions from a professional lens, from an academic lens, from a more detailed lens than I can for you. But I can assure you that that is not what we are doing in this program.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Seeing Mr. Payton.
Yes, hello.
How you doing?
We kind of have a little different situation here in California.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure if anybody's aware, but we had in the city of Antioch, there was a FBI raid and the police racist text message scandal, and it brought a lot of things to light. Like, why is it the a lot of people have been asking, like, why is it that it should be the parents' job when it should be really the teacher's job and the educator's job to teach the young people about knowing your rights. So I was wondering, are we going to try to like target as well, because not a lot of African Americans know their rights?
Yeah, and so that is something that, from your perspective, as we mentioned, we're going to be asking folks to attend school board meetings right up, as that can be your personal narrative. So absolutely, we can definitely dive deeper into that once we connect you with your state conference, or your state conference lead, your state lead.
Thank you.
No problem. Ms. Scott.
Thank you. I just want to try to, I guess, reiterate and caution the young lady that spoke earlier about us talking about CRT.
Yes, ma'am.
When we utilize their language, that is a defeatist position for us to be in. So I'm hoping that you all will come up with some language that's better rather than using their language. I've been saying for years things like, when we talk about um, um, people, let's just use the abortion issues. The other, the right, they're not pro-life, and we should not call them pro-life, because if they really cared about life, then they would care about the children that were on welfare and all of that. They care nothing about those. So we don't want to use their language, because that that supports them. They are not pro-life, so we call them anti-choice, or we call them anti-abortion or whatever. But we need to make sure that the language that we're using supports our position and not the other people's position.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And what I'm going to do is drop my email in the chat for the both of you to contact me if you can. Because yes, I would definitely love to dive deeper into this conversation offline, and just see how I can support the cohort of young people that you both will be working with, to make sure that we're not using their language. But are there any other questions, concerns about the program, outcomes, expectations? Miss Aziz?
The only comment that I have is that this is fantabulous. This is great, enabling and empowering young people to speak in New Jersey. We have enabled our young people to give legislative testimonies. We are preparing for them to testify in front of City Hall next month about lowering the voting age. So I really encourage everyone here. You're listening to the voice of Ms. Maisha, the Region 2 adult rep on the National Youth Committee and the state advisor for New Jersey. And I'm also the advisor for the Camden County East Youth Council. And Jamel, with all of your programming and how you outlined everything, it's really empowering. What we're also doing, the only thing that I would add or just put out as a suggestion, not for you, but for the people on, What I did with our political action chair, and Mr. Jones, I believe he's on here for our youth council, is I just had him this week go through our county, every single school board who's having a contested election. So we went to our county clerk, it may be different in your state, and we got the list. So now we're contacting every town that's having a contested election and asking them, are you hosting a debate? If you're hosting a debate, we want to come. When is it? And if you're not hosting a debate, we want to host one. So that's the only thing that I would add. Again, adults were on here, but we need to empower everyone. The young man, Kevin Jones, I think he's on here. He led a walkout of his school. He was in the news, the paper, the TV, because of what the racism he felt was going on at his school. We led an entire walkout. And so we as the NAACP went in there, we embraced him. He's now here doing great things. He's going to be awarded the John Lewis Good Trouble Award from our local town. So that would be the only thing I want to add. Go through your school, your county, check out each school board to see which are having contested elections. Okay. I mean, if they're not having contested, sure, you can go. It's just that contested are more likely than not going to have a debate. And then these are the things you're going to ask, the questions that you're going to ask. I don't know in other states, but in New Jersey, school board members are not allowed to be partisan. So they can't be Republican or Democrat. So, all right, I'm not going to keep you, Jamel. I know that's your hurry up, Miss Maisha nod. I know what it looks like.
They can't say that they're Republican or Democrat, but they definitely are.
All right, Brother Khalees, again, thank you so much for a wonderful program.
And Miss Hart, and then we will move on.
Miss Katanya Hart?
Yes.
Okay, what's the prompt?
So
I didn't have my hand raised.
Oh, yeah, you did. It was probably an accident. Sorry about that.
Well, then if it is up for one to share here in West Virginia, they have a history of book wars where they actually blew up schools, and in 1974, at least one person died. So it's already the legacy of where I am to have to fight every inch for diversity to be in the schools, that I have held hands with a teacher from Pocahontas County, West Virginia, that was tortured, white teacher tortured for her book list, including a book called The Hate You Give. And one parent found it upsetting and took it to the school board that decided to remove, again, the lessons and the list are all approved before school even started, but they put it all on her. She was so concerned about her 5-year-old son, she moved out of the state. So it is a problem. We created a group here called Truth in History, and they constantly are writing op-ed pieces and going out. They're former teachers, owners of newspapers and the like, that come together, that know the media system and continue to put out the actual truth that is out there and support the NAACP and the other groups to be in the space with them. Oh, and the one thing we did was, as we talk about policies, we've created Black Policy Day at the legislature. We've been able to get over 460 African Americans to come to the Capitol. Most have never been there before during the legislative session to show up and show out.
Thank you for that. So many great points were just brought up, and even in the chat as well. Just understanding our history, didn't know anything about that, those wars happening in West Virginia, but love to hear about the Truth in History group, and would gonna look into it myself just to see what type of op-eds there are as well. As far as the banned books, and how and what the Youth in College is doing. We actually did have a banned book library at convention where young folks were able to walk away with some banned books as well. Actually won't share, but working on something with some banned books as well for our mobilizers to have for themselves as well. But you all have shared so many great tidbits, and looking forward to how you will support our young people as they move through this this program. As mentioned, and I think it was brought up twice in some of the last comments, is that just going to the city hall or to the state capitol, having your voices heard in those spaces is important. And so we want to make sure that, again, we're just grounding our youth in truth so that they can speak truth to power when they show up in these spaces. And so there are not any other questions. If you have any other questions for me, please email me. But I want to give you back 8 minutes of your night and invite you all to our next training on September 28th at 7 p.m. You will receive a recap email that will have that mobilizer form for you to share with your young people so that they can opt into the program. But with that, I bid you all adieu and a good night, and thank you for sitting with us through this training. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Before you get off, this is Reverend Stacy Talton from South Carolina. I don't know if our Youth in College president is on the line, but that's Miss Courtney McLean. She's doing a wonderful job working with resolutions at the state level, and she really needs to get this information.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So
Thank you so much.
No problem. I will definitely share that with her. Thank you. Thank you for the work that you guys are doing in South Carolina. All right, everyone. You have a great night.